a panda bear at one point was considered a cryptid. We all know panda bears are real. The okapi is another one. The duck-billed platypus. My theory on cryptids has always been if a duck-billed platypus can exist, anything is possible. Hi, I'm Lisa of Cryptid Comforts, and I make weird monsters. Mostly plushies, some pet toys, art that I put on keychains, lanyards, different accessories and accoutrements. I do a little bit of horror art, but mostly I stick with cryptid. One dog, his name is Scooby. He's about 120 pounds. He's a big handful. We have 3 cats currently, 2 birds. My partner's an avian field biologist, so he loves birds. He likes to make the joke that he works with real animals and I work with the pretend ones. 2016 is when it really kind of solidified for me. I was teaching in Portland, Oregon at the Jewish Community Center. We had an after school program called Summer Discovery, and I could create my own classes. One of my friends said I should teach a class about unicorns. She's like, call it unicorns, unicorns, unicorns. I was like, that's a bit too much unicorn. How about unicorns, dragons, and Bigfoots? Oh my. In doing research for teaching that class, I started getting down the cryptid rabbit hole. I like to say that Bigfoot is a gateway drug into other cryptids. I was doing the research and I really wanted to teach the kids about how these things that are considered mythical are so founded in our knowledge, like why we know so much about these things if they're not real. We talked about dragons and how finding bones that are probably dinosaur bones, they made up some story about what that could be, and that was kind of the origin of dragons. With Bigfoot, I got to really get into the details of some of the sightings. And every year my class would just grow and grow. Kids loved it, and I got really into it. It was a lot of fun, and we do art projects based on these cryptids and stuff like that. One of my favorite stories from the class is, I can't even remember which cryptid I was talking about at the time, but I'm telling them some cryptid story. And this little girl, Penelope, looks at me and she goes, Miss Lisa, is that true? And I told her, I said, everything I teach in this class may or may not be true. All of the kids kind of looked at me like, wait, what? It was like, that kind of blew their mind. It's like, may or may not be true. We don't know. And that's the beauty of cryptozoology. We don't know. That was kind of an eye-opening moment for all the kids in my class, for me to tell them that everything I teach may or may not be true. The first year I taught the class, I actually was already vending and making plushies and stuff. Well, more sock animals at that point, but more regular animals. So I started obviously sewing up some Bigfoots at that point, and then Mothman, and then the Loch Ness Monster, listening to podcasts about cryptids more to study up for my class. And I just got sucked in, and that was the first year of the Oregon Bigfoot Festival, so I signed up to be a vendor for that and realized these are my people. Immediately cryptids kind of started taking over my entire life, and now here we are almost a decade later. I liked to just make stuff. So for a while I was making soaps and bath bombs and everything, but I did the plushies and everything early on too. And they kind of became more central to my business, and then eventually branched into pet toys, of course, because, you know, my pets demanded I do that. The cat toys are one of my biggest sellers. I do some dog toys and then mostly people toys. So I have a whole range, and I've made, gosh, probably over 50 or 60 different cryptids at this point. My business started off completely handmade, and now it's still a lot of handmade, but I outsource a lot too because it's grown bigger than I can keep up with the production on. So I do outsource a lot of stuff at this point, but everything I create is still 100% designed by me. When I was little. I can't remember how old. I was actually like laying on the couch under a like Afghan, one of the ones that had the big chunky knit holes. And I watched Killer Clowns from Outer Space through the hole because my dad thought I was asleep. So I always will have a soft spot in my heart for that. In fact, I decorating my guest room as a Killer Clowns room, always collecting more Killer Clowns art to put in there. I used to go to Blockbuster, rent movies a lot. One night we were in there, my mom took me and we're walking around trying to decide what to rent. And she recommended I rent Last House on the Left because her and dad saw it when they were dating. I mean, I'm maybe 20 minutes into the movie when I'm like, oh, this is not age appropriate. I don't think my parents were actually watching this. I still to this day love that movie. Yeah, I've been a horror fan for a long time. But yeah, I can't believe my mother recommended that to me when I was like 12. Ready or Not, I absolutely love that movie. I think it's one of the best comedy horror films. I just love Samara Weaving. I think she's the best screamer ever. Her scream sounds so much more real than most of the scream queens out there. And that's one of those weird comfort horror movies because I really can just forget everything else. And I've watched it like 20 times now and I still get jump scares during it. I was asked to co-host by Christy and Greg of the Dr. Jekyll's Institute of Monster Studies. They do a lot of cosplay, all kinds of really cool, amazing creature costumes. So they wanted to bring back UFO Day to Buchanan, West Virginia. So it was something that used to happen that kind of just fell off, and they wanted to bring it back bigger and better. They reached out to me because I have some experience with hosting events. We're doing that for the first time this year. Got some fun things planned for that, some entertainment. We've got all the different businesses involved. There's going to be like a UFO themed escape room. Different restaurants are doing UFO themed food. We're going to have Creep It Real come out and do some live music at one of the restaurants in town. We're going to have a cosplay contest, of course. Lots of fun things to do, an adult coloring contest, kids activities. So it's a family friendly free event. Yeah, we're going to have a good time. That one is June 27th in Buchanan, West Virginia. Really excited for year 4. We're going with an 80s theme this year. Basically, I wanted to draw a squonk in roller skates wearing a leotard, and I needed an excuse. So my co-host Joe is Joe of Cryptoteology. He's a t-shirt designer primarily, and he lives in Pennsylvania. And I guess for about a year, I was telling just everyone, I'm like, someone should do a squonk event. And finally, Joe's like, hey, let's do it. Squonkapalooza is August 1st. We've got live music, we've got speakers and make and take crafts, obviously a bunch of really cool vendors, food, beverage, fun, and we're pre-gaming the night before. We always do cryptid trivia Friday night before. This year we're also doing Dylan's Drink and Draw with my friend Dylan Jacobson of Brimstone Studios. He's coming out to host his show. You don't have to have any drawing skills to play. Fearsome Folklore is my final event of the year that I'm hosting, and that one is in Nashville, Tennessee. My partner for that one is Rick Belcher of Spooks, Creeps, and Assorted Devilry. We've got a brewery that we're working with, and they've got a whole lake compound that they're letting us use. So we'll have speakers in the main brewery, some make and take arts and crafts in there, and then we'll have lots of vendors outside, music outside. Then we'll have another building in the back with more vendors. I think we're going to have our mermaid set up out there for photo ops. Oh yeah, Ghostbusters are coming to Fearsome Folklore is November 7th. Every year I do the Van Meter Visitor Festival in Iowa, Wasteland Jamboree, Mothman Festival. I'll do Hodag, which is in May, up in Rhinelander, Wisconsin. I'm doing a Goblin Market in Indiana. I'm doing Goblin Con in Kentucky, Hopkinsville. Oh, Green Eyes in Georgia, in Chickamauga, Georgia. Cryptid Block Party, which is also in October. That one's in Covington, Kentucky. I did Frogman earlier this year, which is shows in Loveland, Ohio. I do several other smaller events when I'm not doing the big cryptid ones. I mean, I was in high school when the first Scream came out, back when we had dollar movie theaters, which was awesome. So me and my friends would go to the movies pretty much daily. We watched Scream probably like 15 times at least in the movie theater. And I've been to see almost all of them in the theater. I think I've only missed 2 in the theater. Blockbuster and I go way back. During high school, like I'd go in and there was this guy, Sean, who worked there for a while. The fact that I remember the name of the guy who worked there because he and I would start talking about movies and he would recommend stuff to me. We had that kind of bond. Thought my taste was good. I thought his taste was good. So we bonded over movies, and being able to meet people in that way was just such an interesting thing at the time. That's something that I think's lost now. Everything's streaming and you don't have personal interactions like that over that subject matter. Same with music, like going to a record store. It just isn't the same now when you just put your songs on Spotify. It's a whole different vibe. It's like, a parent trying to choose their favorite child. And now in my family, it's me, but don't tell my sister. I love all of my children. They're all my cryptids. I'm kind of over Bigfoot, honestly. Grafton Monster has always been one of my favorites because I think it's one of the easiest cryptids to just write off and say that never happened, because it was literally one sighting once by one person in the middle of the night as they were driving down the road. It's the easiest one to be like, yeah, that's nothing. But somehow it actually stuck around. So I have a lot of respect for the Grafton Monster. That one is very close. I can show you my Grafton Monster. He's just a sweet fuzzy baby. I also really love the Flatwoods Monster, which is close by. West Virginia has all the best cryptids. I really like weird cryptid anomalies like the indescribable Octoman, things like that, and the Dover Demon that had several sightings over a very short period of time and then was just never seen again. Same with the Van Meter Visitor. I obviously have an extreme fondness for the squonk too. I have respect for boundaries in the cryptid community, and I will be the first to say that squonk is not technically an actual cryptid. He's lumberjack folklore. The folklore creatures are stories that people intentionally kind of create to have a myth about them. These things are just stories that somehow take on another life after it's told so much and become more real to people over time. Cryptids are things that people have actually said, I have seen this, and are trying to prove the existence of. You do have people saying that they've had squonk sightings and me being like, oh no, sweetie, you didn't. They're not real. But it's fun. Animals that have been extinct but are making appearances still. So you've got like the thylacine and then coelacanth. It's a fish that went extinct a really long time ago that has come back. There are things like that that are real, then they become a cryptid. And sometimes they become real again. Once you prove something to science, it's no longer a cryptid, and then it becomes a real animal. Do I think that most cryptids will ever get there? No, I do not. However, some have. A panda bear at one point was considered a cryptid. We all know panda bears are real. The okapi is another one. The duck-billed platypus. And my theory on cryptids has always been, if a duck-billed platypus can exist, anything is possible. Do something set in West Virginia, because there's so many cryptids you could include. I mean, it could have the Flatwoods Monster, Sheep Squatch, the Grafton Monster, Veggie Man, Mothman, the Cheat River Monster, the Ogua. So you have this great range. Bigfoot too. You have a great range of cryptids that you could put into a movie set in West Virginia. You could even throw Snallygaster in there because it's right on the border. Same with the Snarly Yow. That'd be a really fun setting for a good cryptid horror movie. I used to sit out on the back deck at my friend's house. I would cat sit for her, and she lived right on the river. This was in Oregon. And in there, we had Colossal Claude that lives in that area. He's our cryptid. And so I'd sit out there jokingly, looking for Colossal Claude, and then I'd see something under the water that I'm like, oh. And it was so easy to explain it away as something else, skeptic that I am, but would have been nice if Colossal Claude had poked his head out and said hello. But I think, it's so easy. You see some mass under the water. There are definitely monsters in that water, whether they're known to science or not. Some of those fish are insane and terrifying. Not only do I have a tendency to want to believe the water monsters more, but also say they're also the easiest to misidentify as a land-dwelling human. I found my special brand of weird with the cryptid community. It's a great community, and it's just fun to think about the possibilities of what's out there. I used to listen to a podcast called the Hidden Creatures Podcast, and Edward Way, the host, amazing, but he ended each episode with a quote saying, "There is and always has been a beauty in the unknown." And that, to me, that sums it all up. There is and always has been a beauty in the unknown. And the things we don't know that we can just think about is such a wonderful place for my mind to go. Like, it's a lot less stressful than thinking about taxes. There has to be more out there than we understand. Why not cryptids? Why not strange creatures lurking in the woods? To me, that sounds like a really fun time. Yes, there are definitely some frightening things, and especially in other countries. I tell people all the time, do not go near the water in Wales because the water leaper will kill you. I'm not out here trying to prove cryptids exist or don't exist. I'm just in it for the fun because I like whimsy. I like weirdness, and this is where I find that I fit in. A lot of people, mock cryptozoology as a pseudoscience, and I get that, and there is a lot of that for sure. I think it's also a lot of people just trying to go out there and prove the existence of magic, and we want that to be real.